going on, everybody? Jay here with the Onocoffee channel, and I thought I would try this new series of videos that are really kind of a throwback to an old era. Like right now, it's the end of 2022, and I was thinking the other day, you know what? We've got these old podcasts that we did many years ago with my friend Nick Cho, and I thought, you know what? Let's see how they sound and what we talked about in coffee back then. So basically, there was a podcast that we started in 2005 called the Portafilter.net podcast. And basically, Nick and I were friends back then. We were really close back then. And at the time, he was living in Washington, D.C., and running a company called Murky Coffee in D.C. And those of you who may know him now, you probably know him more by his new fame is as the TikTok's My Korean Dad. And you know, so we actually did this podcast for 3 years, from 2005 to 2008. I believe we were the very first of the coffee podcast, and it was an interesting time because I had a little bit of experience in radio, and I think Nick did too. And one day he kind of said to me in 2005, he's like, hey man, why don't we do a podcast together? And I was like, you know, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Let's go for it. And so we started to do this podcast that was all about coffee and coffee industry and insider kind of stuff. And we really didn't know if there was going to be any kind of audience other than maybe really geeky coffee guys within the industry. And that's kind of, I guess, who we were targeting. But really, people were, we started out, and like the first episode is relatively short, about 36 minutes. And that's what we're going to go through today. But subsequent episodes got longer and longer, an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 at some point. And, you know, some people were like, well, why didn't you make it shorter? Like they were like, some of the big criticism was, why don't you make it 15 minutes? And really it was like, we're kind of going for this entertainment format that is more like the morning drive show. So if you come and you listen a little bit and then you leave, come back and listen another time, and then you leave, and then that's kind of the format that we were working with. And I thought it was a lot of fun, and I just thought we'd bring it back and see how it goes. I don't really know how this series is going to pan out. We're going to do this one as a pre-recorded video, but maybe it's better as a live stream where you can chime in and ask questions. And so what I figured we're going to do is we're going to listen to the podcast. I haven't listened to these in well over 10, 15 years. And, you know, just kind of reflect back on how we thought about coffee then versus how we think about coffee today. Have we progressed forward or have we regressed? Those are the things that I'm interested to explore. So I hope you'll enjoy it. I hope you'll join me and enjoy the journey as we go along. And so let's listen in. This is the very first episode number 1 of the Portafilter.net podcast, titled The Phantom Menace, which I think because the Phantom Menace was coming out around that time. And it came out on Saturday, the 28th of May, 2005. And yeah, let's start it off and listen in and see what kind of tomfoolery will ensue.
Music. You ready?
I guess.
Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural, the premiere podcast show for the Portafilter.net, the Portafilter podcast, as we'd like to call it. My name is Nick Cho. We're here in beautiful and scenic Washington, D.C. area. And sitting across from this beautiful IKEA table from me,
It's a lovely table,
is my friend here, Jay.
It was a lovely table.
I'm Jay Carragay from Baltimore, Maryland. But I'm here in Virginia for the day.
That's
just
embarrassing.
For this beautiful event with this table. I really like the table. I like the table, Nick. Good choice.
Thank you, IKEA.
Good choice.
Yeah, it's quality furniture there. It's quality disposable furniture for all the people. Yeah, Jay came down from Baltimore. Baltimore, known by many on the East Coast as the armpit.
Yes, it is.
The armpit of the East
Coast. It quite is. We were leading D.C. for murders for a while there.
Always second place. Always second.
Always second? Oh, you sure about that?
It's like the little underachieving brother who went to jail or juvenile hall.
All right, that's offensive. That's offensive.
The capital city of this great nation, but not a state.
Not a state. Taxation without representation.
Sorry for going off on a tangent. Anyway, again, welcome to the premiere broadcast. Thank you very much for joining us today. And I guess we should start out for a little bit of introductions, just not just personally, but you know, why we're doing this and what the point of all this, why we are here on this earth, you know, why God put us here in front of these microphones.
All right,
wonder
let's
about
get
that
to it.
myself. I don't know. What do you think? Why are we here? Why are we here? I don't know why we're
Well,
here.
the point of the podcast, and for that matter, that might, it relates also to why we're doing the whole Portafilter.net thing. And there has been, as some of you may have seen, some chatter on the Barista Guild board about people questioning why we would do such a thing.
Ryan Mason.
Such a horrible thing.
We're watching you, Ryan.
No.
Let me just stop here for one moment. We're talking about Barista Guild boards and things like that. Back in this era of coffee, this is before, I think even before MySpace, so it's definitely before Facebook and before Twitter came out. Most of the discourse that happened online, that happened within coffee circles, was happening online, and mainly on bulletin board forums such as those found on coffeegeek.com, and there was also an organization called the Barista Guild that we actually started, and we had the SCA had helped put together a forum for the Barista Guild, so a lot of the discussion was happening there as well, and so that's the reference. I don't believe those forums, well, the Coffee Geek forum does exist still today, but the Barista Guild forum is long gone. And unfortunately, a lot of lost discussion is lost along with that. All right, back to it.
No, just kidding.
Ryan's a good guy. My one of my old baristas, my ex-baristas, actually, Kathleen Katz Messman, went by and saw him up in Milwaukee.
Oh, did she really?
Yeah. I guess we should start out with a little bit of shout-outs.
Oh, yes.
Shout-outs to our barista friends. Well, go ahead, Jay. Give us some shout-outs.
No. Who do we say? Who do we like out there? No, who's out there?
Well, we'll start out
Chris Tacey. And Ellie, of course.
Ellie, of course.
And our new friend down in Richmond.
Who, homeless?
Homeless roaster. Making a name for himself in the industry right now. Very good.
Very good. All good. Robert and I had some good conversations. Everything's good. Barry Jarrett, got to say hey to Barry.
Oh, Barry, of course. How about Mark? We got to say hello to Mark Prince.
Mark Prince, of course.
Canada.
And Mark's told me that we can all hopefully expect a coffeegeek.com podcast at some point in the future. And,
excellent. That means Andy Schechter will be on there as well.
Well, I was going to say hi to Andy Schechter as well. Andy Schechter. Bronwen. We're going to talk to Bronwen a little bit.
That's right. We'll call Bronwen.
After we'll go through our little agenda. We're going to do some introductions and talk a little bit about what we're doing. We have one, how should I say, one timely topic, which is the journalistic credibility issue that's come up out there.
Yeah, that seems to have taken it by storm this past couple weeks.
Regarding one of our trade publications out there. We'll talk about that for a little bit. The upcoming Barista Guild Jam in North Carolina.
That's right.
Stockton Graham is going to be hosting down there. That'll be great.
Right.
We're going to do a phone call. We're going to do some phone calls and stuff when we're doing the podcast here. We're going to call Miss Bronwen Cerna.
Miss Bronwen Cerna.
All right.
2004 United States Barista Champion.
That's right. Our other champion's away.
That's right. She's away in Japan.
Konnichiwa. To Fung Tran out there.
Yeah. Well, Japan. Maybe she'll do this when she gets back. And we'll do a cupping.
Yes. We've got an excellent, interesting coffee to try.
Jay and I have been talking about how we're not very good cuppers. We don't have much.
No, I'm terrible.
We don't.
Terrible.
We don't feel very confident in our cupping skills, but we're going to cup nonetheless for your listening pleasure, and then we're going to talk a little. We're going to close out with a topic very near and dear to us, which we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Very much.
But for now, again, going back to why we're doing this, Portafilter.net is a domain that I grabbed a few months ago. You can look it up on your little net server thing if you want. But anyway, the whole point of it really being, I think one of the things that we've talked about, and Jay is a barista owner, as I am, and at least that's what we like to call ourselves. Sometimes when we're not out pounding the pavement.
Don't know if that's what my staff calls me, but
what would they call you, Jay?
Oh, probably not good for podcasting, that's for
sure. Being out looking at Coffee Geek, looking at the available discussion groups and communities out there, thought that it might be a nice idea to be able to do something that's a little bit more, shall we say, cutting edge, as far as devoted much more to that upper end of espresso and coffee, kind of pushing the boundaries up there. Granted, and understanding that this isn't necessarily about, it's not about building a base per se. It really is just about kind of pushing that line, experimenting, talking things over. And in that way, I apologize if it comes across as, some have mentioned that sometimes it might come across as a little bit elitist of sorts, like a little clique. And I will confess to all those things. I will say that it is in that way. I don't want to say elitist in terms of saying that the people participating are any better than anyone else. But what I will say is that, looking at Ellie, Chris Tacey, Bronwen Cerna, Peter Giuliano, you're talking about people who are really working hard, not just for their own sake or their company's sake, but really interested in pushing the industry forward.
Yeah.
And so in that way, thought that it would be really neat to be able to... And the other thing is that there are some other blogs out there, and shout-outs to Tony over at Victrola, honks.org.
Excellent blog, that one. Excellent.
They got Jimmy up in Canada.
Yes, Espresso Obsessed.
Espresso Obsessed
nice.
Up there. And Chris Tacey has a blog. You have a blog.
But mine's very, very rare. I don't post to that very often.
Well, and we have some others out there as well. And the thing that's both good and bad about blogs is that it's one voice, and to be able to kind of bring people together and kind of have a group jibba jabba that way. Thought it'd be interesting, and so let's see how it goes. The good thing is we can always pull the plug.
Yes. Speaking of blogs, did you see that the Blue Bottle blog?
Now, another shout out, folks over at Blue Bottle.
I have to say, the Blue Bottle guys, that's the most hilarious sign. I mean, I leave a lot, right? I leave my shop every few weeks.
Sure.
To go traveling, to do something, to waste my time. And the problem is that I have to close or something. So I leave a sign. I'm sorry we're not going to be here. But those guys, did you see that sign they put up there?
What did it
about
say?
The pirates? Something about pirates going to take them and they have to be opening at noon. It's hilarious. Hilarious.
The folks over, actually, Blue Bottle and where else? You place Ritual Coffee out there.
Where's that?
It's in that area, in the Bay Area.
Oh, I haven't been there.
I think as well as Eaton's place, the new place, or Cafe Organica, over there in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hope coming to Cafe Organica. That's right.
Yes. That's right. That's right on Coffee Geek. Shout outs to all those shops. I know that my former barista Danielle has moved out to San Francisco Bay Area, and all those folks over at each one of those shops have been very nice to her and been talking coffee and different things.
Nice.
So thanks for that. But anyway, getting back to what we were talking about before. So that's it. So Portafilter.net was launched this week. It is a totally non-profit, not-for-profit endeavor. It is not about lining anyone's pocketbooks. It really is about pushing that wave forward, that third wave that we like to talk about. So look forward to everyone's participation there, or lack thereof. It's your choice. That's the beautiful thing about this wonderful country of ours, United States of America.
Yes.
Jay's got his sound.
I got to say one moment there, because the interesting thing listening to this is that we've talked a lot about a lot of different names, Chris Tacey, and a bunch of others. And it's really interesting to hear those names again, because some of them I haven't heard in quite a while. A couple of them have not been in coffee as a industry person for many, many years now. So it's really interesting to hear these stories and these names going back, like, Eaton Suno with his Cafe Organica. Like, wow, that was like a blast from the past for me. But it's interesting, like Nick talked about the third wave and like this kind of elitism, and that's something I think was part and parcel of that time, and I think there's always a level of, pretense or something when you're just starting out. Like what I've learned over the years is that, when you're new to an industry, you're learning, and then you learn a modicum amount of knowledge about what you're doing. And then you think, okay, I got the knowledge. And then now we can pontificate about what we believe is the absolute truth. But really, you're still a neophyte. Like this is 2005, and Nick mentioned that we're not really great cuppers. And so I only entered the industry really in 2002. And so I had been in the business for maybe 3 years by that point. And so that is definitely not enough time for anyone to become an expert in anything other than farcical nonsense, which is, pretty much what those forums we talked about we're about. We're like all young in the industry. We all want to make great coffee. And at the time, it was very much about great espresso. The whole evolution into drip coffee and pour overs and all that had not happened yet. We were really focused on really high quality espresso. How do we make great espresso? And of course, young Turks in town, the newest generation, and everybody else, those old guys in the business that have been there since the 90s, they have no idea what they're doing, right? They have totally dropped the ball. They have no idea. We are here to take over and show the industry what it's about. That's kind of the mentality that really started the third wave of coffee. And, glad to say that most of us in the business that have stayed in the industry have gotten over that and have come to. I think what happens after time, you learn that you may know a lot about the industry or about your area profession, but you don't really know much of anything still, and so it's always a continuous learning process. All right, let's go back to it.
Forward up with the governor over there. Play something else.
Yes.
There it is.
There it is. No podcast or anything would be complete without Mr. Schwarzenegger. That's a cue, Jay.
That's true.
Get another one.
That's enough.
I'm sorry. Barista Guild Board. We wanted to talk about that for a little bit. Just it's really neat because you see all these people typing stuff online and going on and every so often you get to meet people. And that's always a treat. And in this way, hopefully for some of you who have not been able to get out to some of the conferences or hang out with some of the folks, like I mentioned that we're going to call Bronwen in a little bit.
Yeah.
Hopefully get the chance to talk to her. But when we do stuff like this, it's again putting a voice to a name, I guess, and maybe to a face if you've seen people.
Yeah, so it gives a chance for people to tell you, hey, man, you really pissed me off with that post you made. Sorry. Just for fun, man.
Yeah. But the Barista Guild Board, and the Barista Guild, I should say, just so everyone knows, baristaguildofamerica.org, the new updated, complete with a new discussion board website will be going up shortly in the next couple weeks. Look forward to that. And again, shout-outs there to our fellow Barista Guild of America Executive Council directors.
Yes, those guys.
Miss Sandy Hahn.
Sandy and Ellie.
Ellie, of course, we've mentioned Ellie before, and Mr. Andy Newbaum.
Yes, the twin Andys from the West Coast.
That's right, and Andy Cronin up in Olympia. And
of course, Bronwen.
And Bronwen.
I think that's going to be the key word for this podcast, is Bronwen.
It's Bronwen.
How many times do we say Bronwen in one broadcast? Someone out there keep count, and then we'll figure that out. If you get the number right, we'll send you a prize.
And speaking of which, you can always communicate with us. We're going to set up an email address, podcast@portafilter.net. That's podcast@portafilter.net.
Right. Don't send anything to that one. I don't know if that's still live.
Love mail, naked pictures, naked Portafilter pictures.
Naked pictures. That's nice.
Naked Portafilter pictures.
That's why I got into this business.
What's that?
Exactly why. To get more naked pictures.
Of portafilters.
Okay. No, we're not going to talk about naked pictures.
I'm not a pervert.
Oh, why?
I'm really, really sorry.
So to go on to our first topic of discussion,
all right, let me just stop there for a moment. Remember, this is 2005. There's a whole different world of humor happening, 18 years ago. So just keep that in mind as we go along with the podcast. I'm sure we're saying, embarrassing stuff.
Almost 12 minutes here. Journalistic credibility and how it relates to our industry. And Jay and I have talked about this a little bit, but just to give a little bit of background, why don't you tell the story, Jay?
Well, just a little bit of background is, turns out that maybe a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, there was a gentleman on this, one of the coffee boards, talking about asking a question whether or not this person that had written an article that included a company was actually working for the company.
Well, we can talk about the article.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm just saying that, it's to me, it's more of a question of not necessarily particular company and people and publication, but more of a abstract that we're trying to. I'd like to.
Okay, let's just call it Company Z.
Companies.
It's not to differentiate it between companies A through Y. Company Z.
Company Z.
And has someone who's a consultant for them.
Consultant S.
A full-time consultant.
Yes, and publication F.
Oh, okay. Publication FC.
No, really, but we can. I don't have a problem with it. But the thing to me is that it's more about getting the industry publications to a better level. You know, I mean, I think that a lot of people that are involved, like the editor of the magazine, is
but
definitely
explain the background, because I don't think that everyone exactly knows what we're talking about here.
Well, the background is basically what happened is that there's the publication Fresh Cup, and published an article. I'll pull it right here.
Jay's reaching down.
I got it right here. Published an article in the May 2005 issue from a Sherry Johns. And Sherry's actually a lady.
A lovely and talented Miss Sherry Johns.
Yes, we're all very friendly with Sherry, and as well as Julie, the editor of the magazine. But so there's this article in here talking about Tokyo's take on coffee, old traditions and new brews, which discusses different shops and the whole scene of coffee in Tokyo. And evidently, Zoka Coffee has opened up an outlet in Akasaka, Japan. Actually, I think that's where Fulton is right now, opening in one of the other locations for them.
I think so.
And so throughout this, she's talking about Zoka, but there's no mention about her working for the company. And even in the byline, there's nothing that says relation to Zoka. And I think that's what got people worked up a bit, was that if you're going to write about a company that you're working for, you need to disclose that.
You're writing an article.
Because so that people won't think that you're being, so that the people know your bias.
Okay.
Because I think there's going to be a natural bias.
And so that's the issue of journalistic credibility, I guess. That's the phrase that was been thrown around about this topic. Well, I mean, my take on this has been, I've kind of come full circle in a sense. At first, I agreed that maybe that was a little bit strange and maybe, I don't know if inappropriate is the right word, but maybe there is some issue there. But then thinking more about it and thinking about these trade publications as a whole, coming to the realization that this isn't an isolated incident. This is the way...
Right.
Someone's calling us. Listen. Hello?
Hey, it's Bronwen.
Bronwen Calls.
All right, before we go to Bronwen, I think that that original topic of journalistic credibility is worth commenting on even now in 2022 and into 2023. And I think that I still hold the same position that I did then in 2005, that if you are someone that is writing an article for any kind of magazine, any kind of publication, and you are writing an article about the company that you're working for, and at the time Sherry Johns was working for or with Zoka in a pretty significant capacity. And a lot of us in the industry knew that, which is why it brought a little bit of consternation amongst other people in the business, whereas, you're writing this article that's, very complimentary. And there's nothing wrong with necessarily having a complimentary article about a company, but I do think that for credibility, you should be disclosing that fact in your byline or in your profile that's in the magazine. I think that's only appropriate to do. And I still think that today, I got banned from an online forum not too long ago, about a year or so ago, because it was an espresso machine forum on Facebook, and I basically did the same thing then. And I was like, there was this guy that wrote an article, and he was someone that was getting free stuff from the manager of the page and who owned a company that was selling equipment. And I said, hey, aren't you the guy that's also getting free stuff? And, of course, the owner of the company got mad at me and basically eventually kicked me off the forum. But, that to me is important that, you should be disclosing your bias. And, it would be like me writing, let's say if I was in an industry publication or any kind of publication, let's say I was writing for the New York Times, and I write an article about Spro Coffee and say, hey, Spro's the greatest coffee shop in America. Well, yeah, of course I'm going to write that because I'm the guy that owns it. So if you didn't say that, if you didn't disclose that fact, that to me is a bit of deceptive practices. So, all right, let's go back and hear what Bronwen has to say Let me know what you think about that. If you agree or disagree, I'm interested to know.
Bron, we're taping right now, and
What?
you're being recorded right now.
You're
for the
live,
podcast.
Bronwen. You're live.
Oh, good Lord, that's awesome.
So we're sitting here talking about something, and all of a sudden there you are. You just call right in. How's it going?
Oh, how perfect. Good. We just got off work.
Okay, this is Bronwen Cerna, of course, 2004 United States Barista Champion.
She's over at Heinz Public Market Coffee.
Coincidentally, she kicked both of our asses, didn't she, Jay, down at the USBC in Atlanta last year?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But so you just got off work now?
I should note that this is Bronwen Cerna, and Bronwen was the 2004 United States Barista Champion. And back then, Nick and I were competing as well in the U.S. Barista Championships. And, of course, him and I didn't place or anything like that. We were just not very good as competitive baristas. But Bronwen was able to win. And, she works for a company called Heinz Public Market. At the time, she worked for a place called Heinz Public Market Coffee in Seattle, Washington. And the owners of that company, the two Johns, John Sanders and John Hornall, were kind of my mentors in the business. They're the kind of guys that I learned a lot from. And so, yeah, there it is. Just thought I'd share that with you, again, with the full disclosure.
Good luck. What?
You just got off now?
Yeah, I just got off.
And so what's it been like now that you've passed the crown on to Miss Fung, the lovely and talented Fung Tran? Well, what is life like as a former USBC champion?
Well, you get to hang out with the current USBC champion, which is kind of nice here and there. I don't know. You still get to travel lots. I'm still doing coffee, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good.
yeah, actually, I'm going to be off to Portland with my friends from Victrola, Tone X, who you all know.
Is it Tone X?
Yeah, with Tone X.
I always said Tonks.
What?
Who thought it was Tonks?
Yeah. I think you've had way too much caffeine today, Vic.
We thought it was Tonks.
It's like Tone Loc.
Is that what it is?
I
I
guess
did
so.
not say Tone Loc.
No, but it's like
He's
Tone
out of
Loc.
Cali.
I thought it was Tonks. It's one of those things. It's like.
It's the Funky Cold Medina. That's what it is.
So what are you guys going to Portland for?
Hanging out with Chris Tasty and company.
Cool.
So,
Are you going to stay at Chris's place?
yep.
Oh, hey.
Gonna have dinner, play with coffee, drink a little,
Uh-oh.
have some good food,
Very good. You posted something on portafilter.net about changing, your job situation changing a little bit. What's going on there?
Yes. So, Heinz is moving about a block away from our current location, across the parking lot from the Starbucks in the Eastlake neighborhood. That should be pretty interesting.
Uh-huh.
And yesterday, I got hired on as a barista at All City Coffee. So I'll still be baristing at Heinz and roasting. I'm learning how to roast over there while keeping up my barista gig at another coffee place.
Where's All City
I
Coffee?
go like that.
Where's All City Coffee?
It's a little coffee company that started in Georgetown, which is a little industrial neighborhood here in Seattle, more in South Seattle. And these guys that started it are designers and architects, I believe, and they had friends in the coffee industry, so they decided to open this beautiful coffee shop in Georgetown to help support that neighborhood. And they have a new location in Pioneer Square in downtown Seattle, and that's the one I'm going to be working at. And it's a beautiful space.
Oh, right downtown.
Yeah.
That's a big move for those guys. I mean, All City Coffee, this is kind of the first, at least on the East, that I'm hearing about it. But I guess Miss Bronwen Cerna, you got that star power, that cachet now. You kind of putting people on the map single-handedly, huh?
Nah. No, I like these guys because they remind me a lot of the Johns, where they really take care of their neighborhood, and that's what they're pretty focused on. They get to serve beer and wine over there, too, so that's an added bonus, I guess.
Very cool. Do you know what kind of gear they've got going? Equipment?
Equipment? Oh, they have a Synesso, actually, at the Pioneer Square location.
Oh, dangerous.
So I get to be working on a Synesso. That should be fun.
Enjoy slapping that paddle around.
Yep.
Very cool.
And yeah.
You guys, I should note here, this is right around the era when Synesso first came on the market. So this is really like exciting stuff to have a Synesso to play around with.
I'm looking forward to meeting new customers and working with new people while still developing my skills, which should be cool.
Good stuff. What are your plans for competition and stuff? Are you going to compete again? Are you going to keep judging or what?
I think I'm going to compete again because this past WBC, I was really, really sad that no girls won, and that really fired me up. So I really want to win again, hopefully, if I can be good enough to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody may come around and kick my ass, which is very likely to happen. So, but no, I'm really excited. I'm starting to train now. So I'm hoping to compete in Japan and the world if I get through nationals.
Japan.
So you're back in. So you're announcing now you're back in competition circle.
I'm back in competition.
Big news back then. Big
So
news.
if I recall, the rules are that because you judged at the 2005 USBC, you can't compete until after the 2000.
Yes. After this coming year's USBC, I can compete again.
But you're not going to judge anymore this year.
Yeah. Oh, I am, but it's like the following year I'm going to start competing again. So
Okay.
I have time to hone in my skills.
Oh, good. I have time to win before getting my butt kicked again.
That's good news. Like, I think one of the things, there's a thread on the Barista Guild board about whether people who are past champions should be able to keep competing or not. And, I think for Jay and I both, I think it was, for a lot of folks, it's, the more the merrier. Bring it on. If people are at the top of their game, then they should continue to be awarded the trophies. If not, then people will fall off. You got Heather Perry, who's been in the hunt, continued to be in the hunt since her win in 2003. All good.
Yeah. Well, the competition keeps me at the top of my game, and it's a lot of fun. It keeps me learning new things constantly. So I'm excited. So
we should look forward to I think it's going to be in California the USBC in 2007.
Oh, yes, Anaheim. Or Long Beach or somewhere around there.
Wherever around there. So we're looking forward to seeing the new generation of sweetness. Which was the name of your signature drink back when you won it.
Just continue, the Asian power that's coming along.
Oh, yes, very nice.
Yeah.
Hey, so the question I think everyone else would like to know, and myself as well, if you're with Heinz in All City, who will you be competing for?
Ooh.
Oh, I'd always compete for Heinz.
Oh, okay, all right.
They're the roasting company, and John Sanders is the bomb. So, and he'd kill me otherwise. So.
And what?
He'd kill me otherwise.
Okay.
So, yeah, Colonel Sanders would.
Colonel Sanders,
come out
nice.
of the trenches.
The trend. Look at this though. The trend seems to be working for two companies. You have Feng Tran, who has Lava Java, of course, and is doing the work, the training stuff for Zoka. So here we have now Bronwen pulling double duties.
Yes.
I think
I've always done double duty though.
That's true.
Except for the past year. So.
True. So, great. Anything you want to say to the podcast listening public as we close out?
I don't know.
Well, aren't you?
It's Memorial Day weekend, so drink up.
Nice. Aren't you guys coming? Are you coming to North Carolina? Is that right?
Yes, I am. I am going to be at Southeast Regional Jam on June 16th through 19th, so that should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent.
I've never been to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Well, neither have I. Have you?
Well, we won't be in Charlotte, will we? It's in Greensboro.
Oh, Greensboro.
Oh, Greensboro. Sorry, guys.
I just want to stop here for a moment because she mentioned the Barista Jam, and back in these days, a lot of the barista events were very grassroots kind of things, and so Barista Jams were, kind of get-togethers amongst baristas just to talk about the craft of being a barista. And so back then, we were still making up everything. Like we were still trying to understand technique and how to distribute correctly. What is the best technique for distribution? All the stuff that we have in modern times with these tools, rakes and distribution tools. We didn't have any of those then, so we were all about just trying to figure out what's the best way to manipulate the coffee to get even distribution. And then, like you heard earlier, they talk about the naked portafilter. Naked portafilter, as far as its practical use within industry circles, was just really emergent at that time. And so a lot of these events were very grassroots, very small, kind of like everybody just getting together to learn and to discuss what they figured out, and really kind of fun events, not like the produced events that happen today.
Or will you until next year, I guess. But good stuff. So
I know we're somewhere in the southeast in North Carolina.
Oh, I know. It's all the same, I think.
For sure.
No,
so Jay, you're going to be there.
I'll be there as well.
I think I'm going to stop by. I don't know if I can hang out the whole time, but we'll hang out, we'll jam, we'll, again, drink up, and...
Can we do a live podcast then, too?
We'll do for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Cool. Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Are you coming alone, or are you bringing anyone with you?
No, I'm soloing it. I think Sanders is out of the country again, so...
Oh, that guy's never in town.
John Sanders. Shout out to John, of course. Very good. Well, Miss Bronwen Cerna, we love talking to you. We love you in every way, shape, and form.
Yes, we love you. Love you very much.
Drive safely on your way down to Portland.
We will.
All right, we'll talk to you later, okay?
Ciao, guys.
All right, see you. Bye-bye. And there she goes. That's Bronwen Cerna, the 2004
nice.
United States Barista Champion. And
always good to hear from her.
Good friend and a good colleague to have in the business. And for those of you who haven't met people like Bronwen and others who are out there winning championships and stuff like that, that's, again, where Barista Jams, Barista Guild Jams, and the regional competitions that will be coming up this year, great opportunities, not only to go and learn and compete perhaps yourself, but arguably more importantly, to actually go and meet the folks who are really doing it at the top of their game, so to speak.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's not about hyping the superstars, so to speak, of the industry, but getting to know these folks, and you see the passion, and for those of you who are managers or owners, to be able to kind of instill that sort of enthusiasm and passion in your staff. I think, I can speak for us here in my shop. The folks who have been able to go to some of the events and activities and conference come away just amazingly fired up, and actually so fired up that I'll tell you right now that actually two of my staff who went to regional competitions, Ryan and Katie both, are now seriously considering, if not already embarking on careers in coffee.
Really?
Whereas before they had really not thought of anything like that. And so that's the power of what these things can achieve. So encourage everyone to attend. But I
do want to mention, he just mentioned some of his staff members, Ryan. He means a guy named Ryan Jensen, who eventually would go on to leave Murky Coffee and start his own business called Peregrine Espresso in Washington, D.C., and he's done very well, and he's been there for, a good 10, 15 years probably now. And so that's just a little bit of the history. If you happen to know Peregrine Espresso, that was Ryan.
Talking about something before we were so wonderfully interrupted, not rudely, but lovelily. That's not a word. But
lovely.
So wonderfully interrupted by Miss Bronwen by her phone call. It's funny because we were actually planning to call her, but I think she was waiting for us, so she called us. And it's funny how those things work out. Anyway, journalistic credibility.
Yeah, journalistic credibility. Where do we leave off on
that? Back to this.
I don't know. Jay, you mentioned on one of the threads. You started your own thread on the Barista Guild board.
No, that was on the Coffee Retailers board, but of the SCA board.
Was it?
Yeah.
The thing about... No. I'm talking about the one... did you talk about that Freakonomics book?
Oh, there were so many boards back then.
Third Wave Unplugged.
Yes. Great book. For those of you who haven't picked it up, I know it's on the top of most bestseller lists.
I didn't know that till this morning.
Oh, yeah.
When I was looking online. I thought,
Yeah, Freakonomics is Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner co-wrote this book. It's an economics professor at the University of Chicago, Stephen Levitt, who calls himself a rogue economist, and basically, in a nutshell, applying a lot of economic principles to more social and kind of, dare I say, pop culture issues. And Jay, you posted something there about information and controlling information. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, because it's kind of like that whole third wave concept we keep talking about, or people keep talking about, and Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner on page 70 of the book, they write, if you were to assume that many experts use their information to your detriment, you'd be right. Experts depend on the fact that you don't have the information they do, or that you are so befuddled by the complexity of their operation that you wouldn't know what to do with the information if you had it, or that you are so in awe of their expertise that you wouldn't dare challenge them.
Right.
And I think I thought that was really pertinent to our industry.
How so?
In that there seems to be this whole attitude of, well, not attitude, but there's some people that seem to position themselves as experts that cannot be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
And actually they touched on it later in Freakonomics about how people that are labeled as experts do tend to take extreme positions in order to get better recognition. Because if they would take more of the nuances, more of an open road, open understanding, they wouldn't be as recognized.
They don't attract as much attention.
Right, they wouldn't attract as much attention.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when I read that, I read the book, and actually,
I gotta say that is still very apropos in the industry today. Like, there are definitely people that like to position themselves as experts, proposition themselves as experts, but you know what? When you look at some of what they have to say or what they talk about, I don't know if it stands up to the scrutiny. But again, like it said in the Freakonomics book, is that they're setting themselves up as essentially gods that should never be challenged. And I think that's very true in our industry today. Still very true.
Just a full disclosure, I should say, I did not read the book at all. I downloaded the audio book.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, and I put it on my iPod. Speaking of podding, put it on my iPod, and as I was mowing my lawn and driving around town, I was listening to this, and it took about 3 days of commuting and mowing to finish it, and great. Again, can't recommend it enough. I mean, it's not.
To be honest with you, like just as that thought, like I listen to a lot of podcasts in my commuting life, but I don't think that if I was to listen to audiobooks, especially audiobooks that I'm trying to learn from, it's one thing if it's like a novel and you're just listening and being entertained. I think that's one thing. But if I'm trying to absorb the information or trying to glean something from that information, I think I get a much better. It makes a greater, deeper impression on my mental Play-Doh if I'm actually reading it. Like I don't find that listening to a book really helps me to learn deeper. I think I need to read it, and I think there's something about looking at it, reading it, committing it, trying to commit it to memory, that really just kind of makes it more indelible than just listening to it, especially while you're driving and being distracted. Like, there's many times that I'm listening to a podcast that if there's information that I really like, that really interested to absorb, I'll rewind it several times over just to hear it over and over again so I can really pay attention to what they're saying, to try to remember it. Because otherwise I'm driving and everything else is going on, and so like my attention to the word is split. And I think that if you really want to like read and learn, listening to the book is not necessarily the way to go. But I'm sure many of you will disagree, so let me know.
The most comprehensive book, but it's a great snapshot kind of thing. Anyway, talking about and as I was quote unquote reading the book, I spoke to my friend Peter Giuliano, who's also a Portafilter.net blogger, about this very topic, about how, for me, the third wave, just like you said, and that's why I thought it was so neat when you posted that the third wave is really so much about transparency. And it really is about kind of pulling back that shroud that I like to talk about, the shroud of misinformation and disinformation about coffee. And I think, just to clarify some of the things that were talked about on that thread, I mean, on the one hand, I think that there's a lot of transparency and more honesty that needs to happen in the industry. I'm not, though, personally, and I don't think that any of us are really talking about necessarily people talking about technique and things like that in an incorrect way and training badly or having bad intentions. I think there are, though, and there is, however, a segment of the industry that does rely on the customer base, the consumer base, not knowing anything about coffee, getting into this business. And I'm sure a lot of other folks have experienced the same thing, where you realize, man, considering how much people drink coffee, people know nothing about coffee. And as you come to learn more about it, realizing that, wow, people are really just misinformed. And then the sad fact is, and for a lot of us who've been in the business for a little while, you start to see examples of people, frankly, being straight up dishonest and misleading about their product. The classic case, of course, always being people selling Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee for $50 a pound when it's just Colombian, just relabeling it.
Right.
There have been some famous cases of that that have been chronicled throughout the coffee community. But that's not the only thing. That's not the only way that people mislead the consumers. And that's an unfortunate occurrence that keeps coming up over and over again. With roasters, for instance, running out of a certain component in a blend and then substituting something else without telling their customers that they did so. I've heard of some instances of people, for instance, sending samples to customers. Here's what our coffee is, and once they get the contract, switching the components out for cheaper components, cheaper beans.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People we know. It's very sad. It's stuff like that happens, and all too common, all too often. And now, granted, those might be extreme cases, but again, the more that you get to know, the more that I've gotten to know about coffee, the more that I've gotten to know about sorry about the buzzing, if you guys can hear that. The more I've learned about the origins, about the different ways coffees are processed, the way that they're sold, and the way that the green bean, the green coffee, what's the word I'm looking for? Inventories are maintained. You realize, wow, this is this fluid kind of thing that's constantly moving and changing.
Right.
And each lot is going to change from lot to lot, and the lot itself is going to change through the months that it's sitting in warehouses. And that's the fact about coffee, and that's fine. But there are so many, I would say the vast majority of this industry that doesn't really want to get into that stuff with customers. They would say, we don't want to confuse the issue. I would say, well, if that's the fact, then why not be more honest and upfront with people? And I think that a lot of the coffee companies that we're seeing now that are kind of at the top of the game are really showing that you can do it. You can be totally transparent and still be profitable, and that those two things aren't mutually exclusive. And so shout out to those who are doing things in a transparent way and really pushing that. Yeah. But
Interesting.
I think we've come a long way since this time.
There's that.
As far as transparency with companies
goes, I was saying that my take on it is, I don't know if these industry magazines are really supposed to be journalism per se. In other words, when I flip through these magazines, there are a lot of articles that are written by people who work for some of these businesses, who are writing articles about their particular segment of the business, and may not necessarily disclose exactly who they work for, and when in fact maybe they mention their company in the article. Now, so I like to take a step back and just say, well, if that's the overall culture and that's what we're getting, then maybe it's not such a big deal.
Well, but maybe, I've heard that argument from Andrew Hetzel as well, that these are not serious publications, that, can anyone reasonably expect quality journalism from our industry publications? And
yes.
I don't know. My position is that, yeah, absolutely. Because, if I'm going to spend $35 for a subscription or how much ever you're going to spend, then I want to be reasonably assured that what I'm getting is credible. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's more about... And then last year I had this similar comment on the boards, and a lot of people came back and said, well, it's a free subscription. And I don't know about you, but for me, Fresh Cup would be a paid subscription. But even those that are free, or quote-unquote free industry subscriptions, there's still value to that in the form that the people that subscribe to the magazines are the numbers that they're using to make their advertisers pay the rates that they're paying.
Sure.
So there's actually legitimate value that you should be expecting from a publication as part of your subscription. And
I suppose.
And the reason that it's interesting because I got the issue, this May 2005 issue, as some sort of a free 3-issue promotion to try to get my company to subscribe. And this definitely puts a question of whether I would be willing to spend the $35.
Well, that's your choice.
But I think that's where the point lies. Is
Sure.
that you're paying for something and you should expect quality journalism.
Well,
from it.
I mean, I think that most people would say, would agree that Fresh Cup and the folks over at Fresh Cup have done good things for the industry, and have forged some great relationships amongst the coffee community. And
no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. I think Julie's hot.
But nonetheless, I don't know. We'll keep discussing this. This is an interesting issue. By no means is this any kind of indictment of anything.
Definitely
any
not.
particular
Definitely not.
magazine. I think it's an interesting discussion, and we'll keep talking about it. If you have any,
I think let's talk about this. I think that's an interesting thing, and even in today's world, that I think that, especially in modern times, with the way that reporting has gone over the last 6-7 years, we really do need to have journalistic credibility. We need to have high standards for the content that we're producing. Even myself as a YouTuber here doing coffee stuff, I need to have standards for what we're going to produce. We're not just going to put out schlock, or it would be remiss of me to promote items or like, for example, coffees, without disclosing the fact that, my involvement with it. Like, for example, in some of the videos here on the channel, there'll be like little like advertisements or just kind of like blurbs, buy coffee from Spro Coffee. And I'm very open that I'm the owner of Spro Coffee. So there is going to be some bias in that respect. But I want you to know that up front, because otherwise, you may get the wrong impression. And so I think that's the same thing when it comes to journalism. We just want to know disclosures about potential bias in the writing. And just because they're an industry publication in the coffee industry and they're not the New York Times does not excuse that. And it doesn't mean that just because it's some other, publication that we should consider to be schlock. I mean, I don't want to pay for schlock. I don't want to read schlock. I don't waste my time with schlock. I want to waste my time, reading and learning about something legitimate. That's my thought. Still, even today.
comments or feedback, send us an email there at podcast.
Oh yeah, don't send it to the podcast.
Portafilter.net.
That's not where we want to go.
We'll read emails on
That's not
the next.
that email is no longer good.
Shows. Anyway, we have some coffee here in front of us. As you hear these cups.
Yeah,
we have our
lovely.
cupping cups, and I think they're just about ready. Yeah, we have a mystery coffee today that we're going to cup, and we're going to try to do stuff like this as often as we can on the Portafilter podcast. Jay picked this coffee up.
Yes.
I don't know if we ever did this beyond
We should start with it.
this cupping beyond this episode.
Right?
Okay, let's look at the beans.
So we have beans.
You wanna?
Set one in place there.
Oh, listen to the sound effects. Jay's pouring out some of the beans onto a little plate.
Yeah,
Out of the
lovely.
bag. This beautiful bag.
Lovely. I'm seeing a lot of brokens,
Oh God.
defects. Look at that. That's a lot of brokens.
Let
in
me
that.
see here.
It's a little bit dark roasted.
A little dark, a
The
little
oils
very
are coming
oily.
through. Here's an interesting thing. My company, we buy coffee, a lot of coffee from Heinz, from the company Bronwen works for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Little plug there.
little plug, but disclosure.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is that let's say I take a bag of that, a 1-pound bag, and I toss it in the back of my truck. By that night or the next day, man, my truck is reeking of coffee, just reeking.
I'm sorry.
You know? And this interesting enough, this guy, I went to the shop, had them bag it for me, half a pound.
The shop. You're talking about the coffee that we have right here.
The coffee that we have right now.
Uh-huh.
Had him bag it. It was really oily, and he bagged it up, half a pound, tossed it in the back of my truck. I bought this yesterday. It's last night after work, and so
Okay.
this morning, you really couldn't smell it at all. And I was like, oh man. So it's really interesting to see the difference between
Well, this is older coffee.
quality
too.
coffee, coffee that's freshly roasted, as opposed. And I believe this coffee that we're getting was roasted in December.
In December.
I believe so.
Very good.
I believe so. Yeah.
This is May of 2005, and I am supposedly talking about coffee roasted in December of 2004, so a good 5 months before that. Now, one thing that I want to touch base on, this is still something that I experience on a regular basis. When I talk about a reeking of coffee, I mean, that's in a relatively positive way, right? Like, for example, if I take a bag of coffee that's freshly roasted and I toss it in the truck, even now in my truck now, I'll still get that experience where the coffee is so fresh, it's emanating its aromas into the cabin of the vehicle that it's just kind of overpowering at times. And so that's what I mean when it reeks. It's like, whoa, my gosh, there's just so much aroma that, I end up rolling down the windows to get it out of the way because.
The sell-by date is December 14th, 2005.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at these beans here. I see a few different. This is a blend, as we can see here. No one's, it's not a single origin. I'm kind of picking through. They're very oily on the surface.
Very oily.
Kind of like a 14-year-old boy's face at 5 p.m. in the middle of July.
Oh,
it's oily and kind of a little dark and not so good. Anyway, okay. So that's enough of the beans. We'll set these over here. We've already have the hot water here. We have 2 cups. One's going to be the dry coffee grounds, and the other one we're just about ready to break the crust. But let's take a nice whiff of the. What do you think?
I wonder what coffee this is.
I don't smell very much.
I'm ready to stir mine.
We'll see if the master cuppers out there can guess which coffee we're cupping. It is a very well-known coffee, if you don't mind me saying.
I'm guessing it's Starbucks.
I still don't get very much of anything.
Yeah, very light.
Anyway. Okay, very good.
I get a little bit burned. A little burn.
A little burn?
A little burn in the
There's your first
smell.
The password is burned coffee. Burn. All right. Okay. So we ready to break?
Burn
yes,
coffee.
I guess so, yes.
All right. It's been sitting around for a little while.
Sounds exciting.
We're breaking the crust as we can talk about what each process, what the process is. Again, I don't really smell very much here.
No, not at all. Burn. That's what I'm getting. It's terrible. Hold on. I'm terrible at this game.
I certainly hope I've improved over the years.
I'm really getting very little of any kind of aroma from this. All right, whatever. We need to skim off this little coffee foam stuff here.
So if you're not familiar, after
Jay, how are
you've
you
broken
doing
the
today?
thing, you have to scrape off the top.
Hope everyone listening is enjoying this so far. We promise we'll talk more espresso and barista stuff in future episodes.
We're just getting our sea leg. That's what it's about. Sea leg.
But, this is interesting. What does it say when the coffee doesn't sink? It's all floaty.
Yeah, a lot of floaties. And it looks kind of light.
Low density, maybe?
Well, that could just be the concentration.
All right. I don't care. I don't care if I swallow the grounds. Oh, my God. This isn't going to work.
Why?
Because it's all floating.
Oh, stop being such a panty.
All right, let's take the floaty bits out. Jeez. All right, most of my floaty bits are out. Are you ready yet?
What?
What?
Wait. Hold on, I'm trying to eat this.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you trying to get Arnold on the line? All right, I'm going in.
Oh my, that was something.
What? Damn these grounds. All right,
I kind of want to fast forward through a lot of this.
We should call someone up and find out if there's a way to fix this problem.
Just call Sanders. The Colonel. Maybe he'll tell us something.
Colonel Sanders?
Ooh. I had bitters. Bitters?
Oh, shoot. Oh, crap. It's all in my face. Let me try some more.
Stop whining.
All right, it's enough. I'm not doing this anymore.
Stop whining.
I'm quitting the coffee industry.
Lovely.
All
Lovely.
right. Any reflections, Jay, on this cupping?
I think it's very...
Like
this reminds me of when I was younger. I really didn't get into the coffee business because I had a passion for coffee. I got into the business because I'm not gonna lie. I'll give disclosure. I got into the business because I was looking for something to do in the wintertime. But reminds me when I was younger.
All right, that's true.
my parents would drink a lot of Taster's Choice, and it was kind of nasty. And whenever I drink coffee with my friends, I was like, oh my God, need to make it like coffee ice cream. This is a coffee that needs to be made like coffee ice cream.
Like coffee ice cream.
Lots of sugar, lots of milk.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of bitter.
Should we tell the folks what it is?
Oh, yeah, they're going to want to know.
What does this bag say?
And because, let me give you a little background. I went to the store, and I said to the barista, I said, hey, what's the best coffee you have? And he recommended this one that was a lot darker roasted, a French roast. And I was like, oh, let me not get that one, because that's going to be a little bit too dark.
Let's not do that.
And,
no way.
He said, well, try this one. I said, this is the one you recommend? Yes, definitely. This one I recommend. All right, I'll give it a try. This is from my competitor, by the way.
Okay.
So,
these are always dangerous terms.
All right.
Cafe Verona?
Cafe Verona.
Starbucks coffee?
Starbucks.
I like the bag. It's got these
Oh, it is Starbucks.
nice, little paisley patterns on it.
Yeah, they do great bags. They really do a lot of. They do a great job with their packaging, I think.
Well, what's nice about this, Jay, is that this coffee is available pretty much anywhere within, just a short drive of pretty much anyone listening to this right now. So if you'd like to cup along,
Yes.
Go ahead and get your own half pound of Starbucks Cafe Verona coffee and throw it in the grinder and cup away and suffer along with us.
Yes. You know what we should do? How about, I got an idea. For the next podcast, we should maybe let everyone know beforehand what coffee we're going to cup. If you're interested in cupping the coffee, so we'll tell you what coffee we're going to cup. You can go to your local store, buy the coffee, cup it yourself, send your cupping notes to us at podcast@portafilter.net, and then we'll cup. We won't read the emails and let it color us. We'll cup it and then share your notes as well as our tastings live.
Okay.
I like that
live
idea.
on tape.
Live on MP3.
Live on tape. That's it's like Oprah's book club, but it's like
like
coffee.
Maybe I could be Tom Cruise jumping up and down at Oprah.
Anyway, so
Oh my gosh, that was
maybe
before
we'll talk about that
2005?
later.
Holy
All right,
smokes.
last topic. One of the favorite things that Jay and I love to talk about. So how many times have you seen it now?
I've seen it 6 times.
I saw it only twice. Once with Aaron, my trainer here, at the midnight showing over here just down the street at Boston Commons, Regal Cinemas.
I'm going to note right here that Aaron, he's referring to as Aaron Ultimo, who owns Ultimo Coffee now in Philadelphia.
And
I thought you said Uptown.
No, that's just Uptown is a big single screen, like giant screen theater, the premier one downtown. But no, I saw Star Wars Episode 3 twice, both
Twice.
and the second time was with my pregnant wife, Susie.
Did she like it?
She liked it a lot.
Really? I didn't think women liked Star Wars too much.
Oh, come on.
No? I don't know.
Just because Trish said that she didn't like it very much.
Well, that's because I'm in love with Trish, too.
Yes, aren't we all? But
Hey, did I tell you about that, Trish? I never told you, but before I really got involved with coffee people, I was reading Fresh Cup. I think it was Fresh Cup back then. Reading Fresh Cup, and they had a report, I think, about coffee or maybe the Roasters Guild, and they had a picture of Trish in the magazine, right? She's tasting or something. I was like, and I saw her picture, and I was like, man, that's a cute girl. I'd love to meet her.
I'm not laughing because I disagree. I'm laughing because...
No, but it's true. Because it's so bizarre because...
I'm laughing because I'm imagining what Trish is, her facial expression right now as she's listening.
No, it's true. Her husband's probably all pissed off now. But really, I was like, man, she's a hottie. I got to meet that girl. And then, then she's married. I was like, well, that's not a good thing.
But that doesn't keep you out of the industry, huh?
Well, by that time, it was already too late. I invested too much money getting into the industry. And so I bought this machine. What am I going to do? Return it over this?
So what do you think of Star Wars Episode 3?
Oh, dark. Forbidding.
Dark.
Lots of pain.
I can't believe that I saw it 6 times. Like, I don't even remember seeing it 6 times. But evidently, I saw it 6 times.
Suffering.
Was it different each time you watched it? Or did it develop into something different? Or?
Well, I thought it was boring at one point. Right after they rescued Palpatine, and there's that whole segment where they're fleshing it out. I remember sitting in the theater thinking, God, this is boring already.
Uh-huh.
And then it picked up again once they got to Grievous.
Right.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Well, we should a little shout out to Kyle Larson.
Yeah,
out there.
Kyle. We should call Kyle. Maybe he'll tell us more about it.
Fellow Star Wars geek. But my whole take on the whole thing is this: I'm sick and tired of hearing people complain about the prequels, and this is why. I was thinking about this as after having watched episode 3 twice.
Uh-huh.
No, we went ahead and I threw in the original trilogy into the DVD player, and I was watching some of it, and I realized, how can you compare your first viewing of a movie to another series of movies that you've seen like 20 times each? You just can't compare. That's like, again, that's like, I don't even know what to compare that to. That's not fair. And so I think you really have to watch each of the prequels about 20 times and then put them in a line.
But the hard part is you just can't watch them 20 times.
Why not?
Because it's excruciatingly painful.
Oh, come on. So you don't like the prequels?
No, I don't mind them, but I mean, Jar Jar Binks does get to you after like 1 or 2 viewings.
Well, they only had him in 1 episode.
But that's bad enough.
Well, some would say, there's that whole thing, the Return of the Jedi sucks camp, that thinks that the whole Ewok thing was just a big joke.
My gosh, people have been pissed off about the Ewoks for 30 years now. I think there's a whole campaign to kill Ewoks going on somewhere in the world.
Ewoks, Jar Jar, and Wesley Crusher.
Wesley Crusher?
The 3 most hated people
Wesley
in all
Crusher.
science fiction. The 3 most hated characters in all of science fiction. But anyway, I thought it was great. Actually, the second time I saw it, I was more sad at the end than I was the first time.
Oh, it's a very sad movie.
It's very sad.
Very sad.
Yeah, I felt a little tear.
It's always about pain, and that's what I told my parents, and said, they asked me, what did you think of that? I said, well, it's all about pain, loss, suffering. It's just down. It's
kind of like
down movie.
Starbucks Cafe Verona coffee.
But worse. It's much more heartfelt than that. It really affects you because you're just like, love. He lost his love.
But the little touches is what I love. Like, for instance, you might not know this, but when they put the mask on him, the Darth Vader mask, there's this little this sound.
Oh, right.
And when I was watching Empire Strikes Back yesterday, there's that part where the guy walks in,
right?
the helmet comes on. It has the same sound.
Yes.
So they a lot of continuity there. Good stuff.
Yeah, that was good. It was But here's the thing that I'm kind of troubled with. Okay, between this one, Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. He gets all that armor put on him.
Right.
And then we fast forward to Star Wars.
Episode 4.
Right, Episode 4.
A New Hope.
A New Hope with Luke.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe there's 20. Luke is 20 years old now?
16.
He's 16?
Yep.
Mark Hamill does not look 16.
They were supposed to be 16.
16?
Yep.
Leia 16? So how old is Han Solo?
Too old.
How old is Han Solo? Because he's getting his groove on with Leia, and Leia must only be 18 by the time he hooks up with her.
For Empire?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think it might be more than that. Who knows?
But that's even worse. 16. Okay, so 16 years. Right?
Okay, leave it to a single guy like Jay, so worried about girls and when they're legal and all that stuff.
It's not about the legal question. Okay. That's only a secondary. So when we leave Darth Vader with the Emperor on the bridge of that destroyer.
By the way, if you don't care about Star Wars, you can turn this off now.
But here's the thing: they have the superstructure of the Death Star finished, right?
You want to know, does it take 20 years to build that?
Let's say it takes 20 years to build it, right? Because the battle station was new in Star Wars 4, right? Right. But by the time Return of the Jedi comes, how much time has there been? They've almost got half the building, half the new Death Star finished. When did they start the second Death Star? Do you think they were building 2? I thought it was just the ultimate power in the universe.
Look, Jay, if you know anything about Moore's Law, with the way that this is how about geeking out here. But if you know about Moore's Law and the progression of things, it's kind of almost exponential for the technology. It keeps moving faster and faster and faster. So if it took them 20 years, it's like it took us 20 years to get from like 10 megahertz all the way to like 3 gigahertz.
Yeah.
Then maybe they can just do it that much faster.
But how much time is there between
I don't know
Star
about
Wars
that.
and New Hope and...
I don't know about that. Let's go back to this is something I have to touch base on, right? Because it's something that has always kind of plagued me with Star Wars. And I grew up loving Star Wars, so I'm a big fan. Or I was always a fan of Star Wars. I'm not a big fan, but I always enjoyed it. It was a big part of my childhood. But when you think about it, how do they build these Death Stars? These are massive moons that they're building. And even if there's... Like, how much of a jump in technology can they have to, like, build faster? And then to me, that's compounded by the latest trilogy that J.J. Abrams did, where they have this star base, right? And it's essentially a terraformed planet where they've taken a planet, they've split it in half, and built a gun in the core of the planet. Like, how do you even, and it's only been 30 years. How do you do that in 30 years? We're not just talking about building a small moon. Now we're taking an entire planet, splitting it in half, and building a gun inside it. I mean, there's a lot of things in Star Wars that are just like, oh, come on, man. This is just ridiculous. Like, what? You know, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for these. Probably get a lot of hate now, and I get a lot of hate. But I'm really, explain to me how these can be built in such a short period of time, such incredible mega structures. I'm interested to know.
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
It could be that long. They don't look that old.
Well, I don't know.
Oh, also, one thing that did bother me about that last, was it not the Clone Wars, but whatever the third one of the prequels was, when Anakin finally becomes Darth Vader, is that I was extremely crushed by the revelation of how he became Darth Vader. Basically, he was just upset that Padme died, and that was it. And I was like, oh man, this guy. It's all about lost love. And here, when I was younger, in the first series, Darth Vader was this really evil, bad guy. Like, he was just there to wreak destruction across the universe, which was great. Like, he was like perfect for that. And now he's just, Padme. I'm very disheartened by that. Very disheartened. Again, I'm sure you're going to disagree with me. So I'm happy to listen to your disagreement. Drop it in the comments down below.
Anyway, so...
You don't understand. It's things like that. I was just like, whoa, I don't understand.
There's a bunch of stuff like that, but, you know...
And then Luke is just... I can't even speak anymore. Luke just drives me up the wall.
He drives up the wall?
I'm glad he's not around anymore.
Luke?
Luke.
You mean Mark Hamill?
No, not Mark Hamill. Luke.
What's wrong with Luke?
All he does is whine. I'm on Tatooine. Oh, I want to go to the academy. Oh, I want to get off this rock. Oh, I'm so
I'd just like to say right now that the views expressed here on the Portafilter podcast are those only of the ones who speak it, and not of the Barista Guild or the SCAA or me or anyone else.
We're not related to those guys.
This has been the Portafilter podcast. My name's Nicholas Cho. Across from me is...
I'm Jay
Carragay. Murky Coffee and onocoffee, respectively.
Yes.
So our alter egos online have been. Hope you've enjoyed this. I hope and pray that we'll talk more coffee and espresso. Maybe we'll do some hands-on stuff.
So that's pretty much it. The very first episode of the Portafilter.net podcast, all in its raw glory. I don't know if that even sounded great. I don't know. You let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to know if you made it this far. I'm going to say when you got bored, let me know. But if you're bored and you clicked away, then I won't know. Or I'll just look at the analytics. But that's the first episode. So I was thinking about doing this as a series for, to do the episodes and have a listen in and discussion and commentary. Let me know what you think about that. Let me know if this is interesting. Let me know if this is kind of content you'd like to see. Maybe it's better as a live stream. We could do it like a weekly live stream where we'll listen and comment and do it that way. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. I know it's been a new and interesting kind of show here. But thanks very much, and see you next time.